You guys ready to get started?
Sure.
All right. Thanks for coming, everybody. I'm Blake Ballin. I represent Desmond Mills. This is my law firm, Ballin, and Fishman. And have a co-counsel over, well, not co-counsel, but counsel for one of the other defendants.
Yes, William D. Massey, and I represent Emmett Martin, M-A-R-T-I-N, and my name is William Massey, M-A-S-S-E-Y.
All right, I do not have a prepared statement. We, I think, are probably both happy to answer any questions we can, knowing that these are the early stages of things, and we are in the dark about many things, just like the general public is. But with that being said, we're happy to answer any questions we can.
And
Have you seen the video yet?
No.
And if it's, how long is it?
No, that has not been released to the public, hasn't been released to us. The next step will be that we officially sign on as lawyers for these defendants, and that triggers the beginning of the discovery process. So sometime in the near future, we will get not only what's released to the public, but everything else. Every single angle out there, every interview, every piece of paper that the state has, they will have to turn over to us.
Counsel, can you confirm if your clients were part of the Scorpion unit?
Yes, I can confirm that Mr. Mills was part of the Scorpion unit.
And you, Mr. Massey?
Yes, I can confirm Mr. Martin was part of the Scorpion unit.
There's a difference in the bond amount between your two clients, but the charges are identical. Any thoughts or explanation there?
Again, we're without information to answer a lot of these questions.
So at this point, you're just clueless of what's going on with the whole thing, because you don't have any answers for us right now, because you haven't reviewed the video. You just know just bits and pieces, just like many of us.
The state and the TBI evidently have the answers right now that you want to know the answer to, the questions you want to know the answer to, and we're without information to answer the question.
Yes, sir.
So I object to the characterization of clueless. But, obviously we have I don't want to speak for Mr. Massey, but have spoken with our clients. We obviously have started to think about potential defenses. We are getting to know our clients. I've spent some time with Desmond Mills and have learned a lot about his background. And what I've learned so far is that he is known not only here locally, but back where he's from in Connecticut, as just a gentle, respectful father, a family man. I actually spoke with some of his family members today. His father, who talked about his own admiration for his son as somebody who's dedicated his life to being a law enforcement officer. And not only is Mr. Mills obviously devastated to find himself charged with a crime, but as somebody who is on the other side of law enforcement, somebody who has been in charge of keeping our community safe, to be accused of something like this hurts him on another level.
Do you either have prior experience in any law enforcement departments?
Desmond Mills does. He, well, not law enforcement, but he has been a jailer both in Mississippi and Tennessee.
I understand attorney-client privilege, but can you kind of talk about their disposition today?
So, Bill, I'll let you answer that one first.
Well, anytime a police officer is going to jail, it's a traumatic moment. And so he was experiencing that this morning. I surrendered him to the TBI this morning, and he had resolved himself and moved forward.
It's hard to know with anybody, but especially with somebody like Mr. Mills, who is pretty mild-mannered, very respectful. He has put on a very strong facade, but I know underneath it all, this is causing him and his family a lot of anxiety and a lot of pain, not only for his own situation, but for what this kind of accusation, what this kind of incident is doing to our city. So we are concerned, I know I'm concerned not only as a lawyer for my client's safety, but for this community and the frustrations that exist in this community, especially with these kinds of events. So with that in mind, talking about turning them in, and we do appreciate how law enforcement has cooperated with us and with our clients in making sure that they were able to turn themselves in safely, that they are safe within the jail, and that they will be released safely. So I know that Mr. Mills is posting his bond. He is in the process of being let out. And that will be, we are now at the very beginning of what will be a long process.
Yes.
Sir, can I ask you, Sarah from CNN, if Mr. Mills has said anything about Tyre Nichols and the family and what happened?
Well, so when you talk about what happened, that is obviously something I can't talk about at this point. Of course.
Video of it? Like, have you been able to see the video? Has he?
No, they have not let anybody see the video. We're hearing that's going to be released soon, and we'll be watching, obviously, with from a different angle, but we will certainly be watching as well.
Mr. Bassett,
Wait,
your
hold on. Can you
client has
answer
a
the
bond
first
out
question?
plan
Sir,
as
can you
well?
answer the first question?
Or
Has
what
Mr. Mills spoken
happened?
about Tyre Nichols or the family, or said anything about condolences even for the family?
He could not be more upset about this entire situation. Again, somebody who has dedicated his life to protecting society, to protecting the community, to be accused of being involved in the death of another is devastating to him. We have not had a conversation specifically about Mr. Nichols, but knowing Mr. Mills and the kind of person he is, I cannot imagine that he has anything other than feelings of grief for this family who has lost somebody. I understand we are defense lawyers. We are representing people accused of causing somebody else's death. But that doesn't mean that we're not aware of the fact that there is a lot of pain from the Nichols family and in this community. So we and our clients, again, not to speak for Mr. Massey, but I know I and my client, Mr. Mills, are well aware of that.
All of us are. I think all of us are. And, the state has had this matter indicted, and there are numerous allegations made against all of the officers. And I watched the conference today. I thought General Mulroy did a very nice job of presenting his side to the media. And he asked for justice. And we agree. Justice means following the law. And the law says that no one is guilty until a jury says they're guilty. And so that's a process, and that's going to take a long time. Eventually, the state will be able to place their case in front of a jury, group of citizens from the community. And if they have sufficient proof, that jury will say guilty. And if they do not have sufficient proof, that jury will say not guilty. At this point, we don't know what proof they have because we do not have discovery, and we've not seen the video. So we're kind of in the blind right now, and this process is just starting.
Mr. Martin, can you explain to us if her client is bonding out today as well? And have you had your initial conversation with your client?
Certainly. I spent the week with him.
Similar, your description of him, and is it the same, his time as a police officer? How's he responding to all this?
There is no way, no one out there that night intended for Tyre Nichols to die. Tyre Nichols to die. No one. No one.
And is he bonding
And
out
it's
today?
shocking. That's shocking to the officers. It's shocking. I would just imagine police officers have a very difficult and dangerous job, and sometimes a thankless job. And it's probably one of their worst fears that something like this would happen on their watch.
Gentlemen,
It's shocking.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Gentlemen, both of you are experienced lawyers here. This city hasn't seen anything like this with 5 officers being charged at one time. What would you say about the meaning of it in a historical context, this case, what it means to the city of Memphis, and, any observations as to, now Memphis is going to be a spotlight in terms of police reform and brutality? Anything you can say about that?
I think the public will get to see how the justice system works in Memphis and Shelby County.
And I would say that sometimes you can find a silver lining in any tragic situation, and you ask about police reform, And whether these individual officers committed a crime or did anything wrong is certainly something that will be talked about and looked into for the next few months, if not longer. But talking about the idea of police reform, anytime you have a catalyst to make your community better, even if it comes out of a tragedy, that's all you can hope for, right? That as a result of a tragic death, whether it's a criminal death or not, loss of life is a tragedy, and if this brings about change that helps move our community in the right direction, maybe that can be a silver lining to what ultimately has obviously started as not only a tragedy for Mr. Nichols and his family, but also for a very trying experience for my client, Mr. Mills.
What's Mr. Mills' bond?
It is $250,000.
Mr. Martin?
$350,000.
Emmett with one T or two? There's confusion there. Emmett, one T or two? Two. Thank you.
Gentlemen, can you tell us if your clients plan on pleading not guilty?
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Attorneys Ballard and Massey, you all have a history of taking on high-profile cases in the city and historically getting people pretty solid deals. When they sign on to you, why did you choose to take on these clients for this case?
We're both defense lawyers, and I think we're both believe very strongly in what we do. Everybody deserves a defense. Mr. Mills is a man. My client, Emmett Martin, is a man as well, and they deserve a defense, and that's why we're here.
Now, they really didn't specify, who were the three officers that intervened and the one that actually committed the crime. Were your clients one of the ones that intervened?
We haven't seen the video yet. We don't have the discovery yet.
How will the video impact your process moving forward and how you defend these men?
So, I think I've said this before, and maybe it was to you yesterday, about how there's a very visceral reaction to videos like this. And I have not seen this one, but unfortunately we've all, over the last couple of years, seen videos where there's police brutality involved. And so I would just caution the public to reserve judgment. You're going to feel things, you're going to experience emotions, but know that there's always more to the story. And although there's been a promise to release a video, I don't know how many angles, I don't know from whose perspective this video will show the incident, but there is always more to the story. And we are always, as defense lawyers, up against the fact that the state goes first. The state gets out ahead of us, and they release the information, and they get started painting defendants in a negative light. And so we're always playing catch-up. So I would just remind each and every person out there watching, listening, to view this with an understanding that there is more to the story, that we will do our own investigation, that we will gather information from the state that's not available to the public, and when it's time to defend our clients, our side of things will come out.
City officials are bracing for unrest. Are your clients concerned for their safety?
I've not discussed that with my client. I mean, but I have heard the same rumors. So, of course, I would be concerned for anyone in the community's safety. We hope that everyone's voice is heard, but heard in a peaceful manner.
Can I ask you a question about the director of the TBI? And he said some really condemning things. He said he was grieved, he was shocked, he was sickened by what happened. It's absolutely appalling. And then went on to say what happened here does not at all reflect proper policing. This was wrong, this was criminal. When you heard that, what did you think? And have your clients heard all of the charges against them?
I thought, I wish I'd seen that video so I could evaluate what he said. We will see it soon. And until we're able to see it, I really can't comment on it.
Have
I don't
either
know.
of you ever heard something that strong coming from the director of the TBI?
Yes.
And what about you, sir? What did you think?
What I thought when I heard that was that law enforcement, that our district attorney's office, they have a duty to make sure that not only are they prosecuting crimes, but they're doing it ethically, that they're doing it in a fair manner. And to make those kinds of comments, or before making comments like that, I think people need to think long and hard about what that adds to the story, about how it affects the community in which a case could be tried, and whether he is saying those things for a good purpose, for a reason that is proper. Is he saying things to incite hatred towards our clients? There needs to be some thought about the way things are characterized when you're talking about a jury pool out there who's going to see and hear those comments. So hopefully going forward, the kind of information and the kind of characterization of things will keep in mind the idea that we all, both on the defense side and the prosecution side, want this process to play out in a fair way.
Do you think he's trying to incite hatred against your client?
To say things like that when you have a tinderbox that we're all concerned about, I have questions about whether those were the right words to use, whether this was the right timing, and whether the government should be saying those things about people who are innocent until proven guilty when you know that's going to be broadcast to potential jurors.
This incident occurred in Memphis, Shelby County, and it should be tried here in Memphis, Shelby County. It makes it more difficult when statements of the nature that Blake just discussed are made to our jury pool.
Will you ask for a change of venue then? Will you ask for a change of venue, potentially?
I do not want to. I do not want to. Memphis, this occurred in Memphis. Memphis is the community that should sit in judgment. But we should have fair jurors. And jurors that hear one side of the story right now form opinions. People just do that. And they're not hearing anything favorable about the officers. And there are many things favorable to say about both.
Apologies if you already said this, but is Martin planning on making bail?
He is.
Okay.
Do I have a question about that, about why officers are being allowed out of jail? Are the officers getting special treatment because of a new bail rule? If you have a bond over $100,000, can you talk about that, what that means?
Your question, I think, touched on a couple different areas. The idea of over 100,000. There's a local rule that says if you make a large bond, you have to prove the source of those funds to make sure they're not coming from an illegal source. There is no question from certainly from me, from the prosecutors or the judges, that the money being used to put up these individuals' bonds, Mr. Mills in particular, is coming from a illegitimate source. So that is not really an issue in this case. He is employed, hardworking, as is his family, and the funds are absolutely coming from a legitimate source. With regard to the amount of bond, there's an argument that it's excessive. There's an argument that these people, focusing again on Mr. Mills, he's not a danger to the community. He has never been in trouble before. He is a law enforcement officer. He has ties to the community. He is not a flight risk. So the idea that he's getting special treatment, perhaps he is. Perhaps the bond shouldn't be as high as it was.
Can you tell us if the police union hired these officers?
The police union hired these officers?
Hired you as attorneys, but was it union?
Okay, so yeah, I'm not in the practice of commenting on where my fees come from.
Can you all speak to whether or not any of the officers who are your clients or otherwise had any previous connections with Mr. Nichols?
Not to my
Yeah,
knowledge.
none that I'm aware of. So.
Can you comment on the release of the video? We're expecting it to be tomorrow, sometime after 6 o'clock. We heard that in the press conference with Mr. Mulroy. What are your thoughts on the release at that time, over the weekend?
I would like to see it. So I would love to see it ahead of time, but I certainly am looking forward to seeing it.
What about the time? What about the timing of on a Friday night?
It'll be a Friday night.
Well, will you be calling ahead of time to see if you can see the video prior to it being released tomorrow?
Yes.
So I would hope that whoever's making the decision, whether it's Mr. Mulroy or the police director, that they have all met together and tried to decide what is the best time to do it, to make sure that they have what they need in place to ensure that any protests are peaceful.
Have hearings been set for your two clients? Are you aware of any?
No, there are no hearings set yet. I don't think they're even booked in through the clerk's office yet.
Okay.
So I would expect that if they are all released on bond, and I do expect that that will be the case for everyone, that usually the way things work in our system is that it will be a couple of weeks before they're set for arraignment. Because they have been indicted, there does not need to be any sort of judicial process immediately. Because they have bond set, they don't have to go before a judge immediately. So I would expect that there might be an arraignment. It could be a couple of weeks out, to be honest with you. So don't expect there to be a court appearance tomorrow. That's just not the way our system works when somebody is indicted like this.
Thank you.
Because of the severity of the case, will these officers be placed in a secure location until everything is squared away? Or cases are done, or, you know what I'm talking about?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
I know you mentioned that maybe some of the words used by the head of TBI were a little bit harsh or out of place when it comes to, you know, the way that this is viewed. Do you think anything that's the way that things have been handled thus far might have to do with trying to tame backlash from the community?
Backlash in a sense of
Like
the way that
the uproar and, you know, the possible outrage that people are worried might happen.
I think that there has been consideration amongst the authorities about how to release this video and what the public reaction might be. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
I guess what I'm asking is, up until this point, the way that things have been handled, the choice of words that have been used, do you think that that has been deliberately chosen in a way to try and keep the public at bay?
I would hope that any public official speaking on something this sensitive would keep in mind that their words are important, their choice of words are important, their tone, their characterizations, and that they have the opportunity to help ease the pain that might be caused by any information that comes out.
And you can listen to those words and evaluate them yourself.
After the release of the video tomorrow night, do you anticipate representing any of the other officers involved?
No,
Why is that?
because I already have one, and anyone else would be a conflict of interest.
There's a parallel federal investigation going on as well. How will that affect how you move forward? Or will that slow up the process? If there are federal charges, will that change how you can represent them?
Well, it's what we call a dual prosecution, when they're running both cases together, a prosecution in the state as well as a prosecution in the Fed, or potential prosecution. I know they are investigating. We would expect them to be investigating. It does make things difficult. It does.
It does complicate things. I'll tell you that I know that, again, speaking for Mr. Massey, we know the players involved. We've known the state and federal prosecutors for a long time. We will work with them. They will work together. And so there will be a lot of overlap. But at the end of the day, these are going to be cases that will, as you said, run parallel but separately. So that does complicate things. That does mean that the outcome in one can affect the outcome in the other. You have different types of laws that are being investigated. So to answer your question, it does make things more difficult and potentially complicated. The federal government is going to move a little more slowly on this, which is not unusual. And so for now, we are focused on the state indictment. If and when the feds decide to do anything, we'll shift our focus.
Are you for the video being released? Would you like them to hold it?
From the standpoint of representing Mr. Mills, I don't want there to be any prejudice against him when it comes to a court of law. As a community member, I understand the need to know what happened. So that's a delicate balancing act that the DA's office is going to have to undertake.
Do you think the swiftness of how TBI handled this investigation has anything to do with the 5 officers being black?
I have no reason to think that.
Have the officers made statements to the police in the course of this? Do you know if they've already made statements to investigators in their own department?
If I understand the question correctly, have the police officers made statements to investigators in their own department?
Correct. In other words, usually the debrief or something, do you know if they've made statements already?
That is customary to do.
The union here in Memphis has a 48-hour agreement where the officers aren't expected or supposed to speak with law enforcement. There's been talk that that agreement was actually 96 hours. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know how long of a delay there was. I know that there is a process when there's an internal investigation. I know that my client cooperated with that process. I also know that any statements and any investigation that goes on with regard to a civil servant in his or her job does not become part of the criminal investigation. So that was handled separately. I can tell you that Mr. Mills cooperated fully.
Bill?
Yes, very same.
And just
Very
for
soon.
clarification, your two clients are the only ones who have hired on attorneys at this point in time? Like, you know or don't know?
Our two clients are the only ones that...
That have hired lawyers. No, I don't think that's correct.
No, that's not correct. I think
Okay.
everyone has a lawyer.
Okay. Do we know who's representing the others?
Yes.
Can you tell us?
I can look off my list when we finish it.
All right.
So I've heard names. I don't want to be the person to confirm or deny anybody representing someone else. I know, Mr. Massey and my firm, excuse me, we work together a lot. We're in constant communication, so he knew I was involved. I knew he was involved. Beyond that, we can't say. Excuse me, but I do know all the officers have legal counsel.
One of the things that both of our offices have are legal teams. It's a big job for just one person. And I have two of mine over here today. Lauren, are you there? Joe?
She's back here.
Come on up. Yeah, this is my daughter Lauren Fuchs, and this is our law partner Joe McCluskey. Both are partners in my firm, and both will be assisting in the defense of Emmett Martin.
Looking forward to it.
Was it unusual that they brought in the trial team, that they introduced the trial team during the press conference? I've not seen that other places before, but maybe that's customary.
I hate for them to come up here and not be introduced.
Oh, no, not you. I mean, the DA introduced the trial team. He said this is
The Assistant District Attorney Paul Hagerman handles a lot of these type of cases for the state. Both Blake and I have worked with Paul Hagerman for a long, long time. And I think both of us find him to be a very upright man, a very good person to deal with. He does what he says he's going to do. He hits from the front, but he hits hard. And so introducing Paul Hagerman is probably a good thing. I don't want to speak for you, but I think your experiences with Paul Hagerman are probably the same.
Absolutely. We do have a new DA, Mr. Mulroy, so as far as what's customary and new, we're learning as you are, but we do know all of the prosecutors involved very well. Have nothing but good things to say about them, and we, as usual, will all work together to make sure there's a fair and just outcome. All right. Good. Thank you all for coming, and as things develop, we'll try to make ourselves available.
Thank you.
Hopefully we will know more.